In this podcast, we chat about the defeat to Cardiff, the draw against Rotherham, and answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is our Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod.
Wants support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Avenelli coming alive again. Janino wants the ball played to him. Avenelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Jonny, Dana and Tom. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Matchday Chatter in a podcast. And well, the defeat to Cardiff and a draw against Rotherham saw Boro take 1 point from the week and end up being 22nd in the championship table going into the first international break. Guys, let's start on this, shall we? How are you feeling about the start of the season in 3 words? Dana, do you want to go first?
To be honest, I only have one, and it's confused because I think back to the very end of last season and that tonking that we got off Preston. And I remember everybody left Deepdale. They were kicking the ball around where the coaches were. And I think people were quite optimistic about the next season because it really didn't feel like we were that far away from being a top 6 side. Of course, we finished 7th in the end, but it felt like we only needed a few more pieces to the jigsaw to be able to make that next step. And yet what I've seen from this season, and particularly from the last 2 games, we look miles off it. We look really weak the past 2 games. And I think it was a case earlier on at the start of this season that Boro were playing well and not getting the results. But based on the last 2, we are now playing poorly and not getting the results, which is even more worrying. So I'm just really confused. We seem to be taking backward steps now, which is what's making me just baffled. And that Cardiff game was a massive head scratcher. And to follow that up with a equally poor performance, but in different ways against Rotherham is really disappointing.
Okay, so confused and a little bit disappointing. But Tom, how are you feeling?
Well, my 3 words that was pathetic. I had a very non-PG version of that, but I'm aware that people do listen to this podcast with their kids. So, just sticking with that. Really not impressed with us at all after this week. We have played some better stuff earlier in the season, but as Dan has just said there, it does seem like we're taking backward steps now. I did think after that game against Swansea where we, it was very impressive win. We never looked like conceding. Maclark had the absolute game of his life. I thought, this is going to be something we can kick on from and build from, and we've just never looked the same since.
Yeah, and I think kind of echo you guys as well. I think deflated, frustrated, and but optimistic. I think if I ever want to put optimistic as my 3rd word, I think it's very easy to feel deflated and frustrated, especially over the last few days and the start of the season being really, really poor and not being to the standard what we want, like what the fans want, what the coaching staff want, and what the club wants really. But I feel like I am optimistic because I feel like we can turn it around, even though it has been so poor. We've got the coaching staff to do it. I think it's just kind of a case of putting the rocket up, the players and everyone together. I think I do love the players and I love the club and stuff, but I kind of feel like sometimes you just need to go, right, you weren't good enough. I'll pay however much a week to go and watch his play. I appreciate seeing ticket bring that price down, but and to see the performance of this week, I was just so frustrated, deflated, and I was I just felt a bit numb after the game yesterday. I didn't really want to know too much and didn't want to speak about it, but I think you put a arm on the shoulder of some players or bollock the others or work with the psychologists the club does and try and get ourselves back on the road again, because I feel for everyone really, especially the fans, I think over the last few weeks has just been a big head scratcher and frustrating. But why do you think, Dana, that we've had such a stuttering start to the campaign?
How long have you got? I think there's a magnitude.
Well, we normally have about a 50-minute podcast, but I mean, we can go over. I mean, it's not a hard stop. We just tend to fit it all in 50 minutes. So
Aye.
Crack on. I'll just get my cup of coffee and you go away.
Start like doing the Rubik's Cube. I don't know. I mean, there's just so many. I think firstly, let me start. He's got one there at hand. We didn't plan that. I think firstly, losing our best player on the eve of the season was a big blow for Boro, and then replacing him with Alex Moore, and then an internal replacement there in Riley McGree, who I thought together on our Alex Moore Lowdown pod, I did say that I think them two can cover some of the bases of what Tav brought to Middlesbrough. I'm not seeing that. And we've gotten rid of a ball carrier. We don't have a ball carrier in midfield anymore. McGree could potentially do that, but we're not seeing it because he's being played further forward. So I think the absence of a ball carrier is really infuriating because we don't have the dynamism on the legs in midfield in and out of possession. And the defence in key moments, the defence can be good for the majority of the game, but then when we want them to stand up and defend in those key moments, their backsides fall through. And Stoke, the prime example of that, ignoring the first goal because it shouldn't have been a foul. The referee said that after the game. But the regen Wright Phillips goal should never have happened. It's just a lack of communication, a lack of responsibility, nobody really taking the reins there in defence. And then the midfield as well. You know, I think adding the layers onto the defensive problems, it stems from the midfield because we're not keeping the ball well enough as we were last season. We're poor in possession. And as soon as we lose the ball, our defence is on the back foot because you think of whenever we have the ball on, say, the right, you've got Jones really high up the pitch, you've got Dykesdale really high up the pitch, and then we're usually left with defenders that are quite slow, let's be honest, trying to chase back and recover the position to a degree of safety from the counter-attacks that we concede. So that's a big problem. The midfield is porous as hell, and it's not helping the defence. And then I think there's a slight hint, one of those words, of disconnect up front as well. And the game yesterday, we had some chances. They fell to probably the worst players in Watmore, who's not a good finisher, and Isaiah Jones, who has the shooting technique of an infant child that's just discovered football. So it's not great.
Oh, poor Isaiah Jones. Been described as an infant. But I see what you mean, though, Denner, on like about being caught in possession. Though I think we spoke about it briefly on our preview show where we broke down players that we were interested in. We spoke about Ryan Giles and the aspect of if we're in possession, we're going to have to play a way where it's expansive, but also we'll have to pin the other team's full-backs back and have really high wing backs. But obviously the weakness of that is if you do get caught in the counter and you don't have the legs to do it, then you do get, you do give away big chances. But Tom, all of the data, if you're looking at FOTMob and who scored and what have you, and FBref you want to go as well, and it all says that Boro should be fifth, really. If you look at like the XG, expected goals against, chances created, biggest chances missed. Well, here we are in 20 seconds. Do you think Boro have just been simply unlucky, or is there more to it?
No, I think there's more to it. I don't think you can say a team's been unlucky to end up in the position they are after 10 games. I think we are where we are due to conceding too many goals, which is down to a poorly drilled team, midfield and defence. I think that would fall to. And we've missed too many chances this season, which is due to us not having an out-and-out finisher in the early games. As Dana's just mentioned there, Duncan Watmore, we know, isn't an out-and-out finisher. He has the potential in him to score some absolute worldies at times, but then he'll get a tap in from 6 yards out and manage to put it wide. The chances we had in early games, he really should have been finishing. And yeah, as mentioned there, the defence just haven't been doing their jobs, and it's ended up in us conceding too many goals.
So this is an open question to pair of you. So Tommy, you can take it first if you want. But how do you resolve that inconsistency, the poor drilling that you mentioned there, Tom? But then also, do you think it's a confidence issue as well, as the results haven't been coming our way?
I think it is a bit of both, and I think to resolve the inconsistency, you use this international break to really go back to basics on the training ground and improve that team cohesion. I don't think we're too far off because we have seen great one-touch football earlier in the season. That pre-season game against Marseille, obviously it's pre-season, so you can't take too much from it. But some of the football we played there was outrageous, and then we carried that over into West Brom. Ultimately, we haven't capitalised on it because we can't keep goals out at the back. But I think a prime example of the effect having a well-drilled defence would be Karanka when he first came in. He's ended up coming in. We had a spell of like 6 games where I don't think we ever scored or conceded, and he turned Friend, Gibson and Ayala and Dean Whitehead or Joseph Fargo at right back into a defensive unit that just didn't concede. And I think arguably now we have more quality options in defence than we would have done at that point. I think, hypothetically, any new manager coming into this isn't going to be looking at the likes of Lenihan, Clark, Dijksteel, McNair, Fry, etc., and thinking that's a defence with a shitload of mistakes in it every game or anything like that. They're going to be thinking those are quality players I can work with. They're very capable of being a strong defence we can build a foundation on. They just need to be drilled into being a unit, and I think you do that over the next couple of weeks. And going forward, I just think we're overcomplicating things far too often now, and we just need to simplify it. We're not doing the things that we were previously doing well. So I feel like this break's probably come at an opportune time. I think usually in our recent history we're doing well, and then we go into an international break and it all falls apart. So we really need the opposite from this couple of weeks.
Dana, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, in terms of the inconsistencies and how to iron them out, I really worry about our midfield because I think it's the source of a lot of our problems, and I don't think we've got the personnel to change it because the left of midfield, we've got a lot of left footers, but it's like Ed and Eddie, isn't it? Between Boyd Munns, Riley McGree and Alex Moore. Like, I just don't think our midfield is anywhere near as strong as it was last season. And yes, there is a big Tavernier-shaped hole in that midfield, but surely we still could have done enough. And it feels like Crooks is a shadow of his self from last season, and he doesn't have any competition now. And then Howson has probably, I know everybody loves Howson, and to criticise Howson is like throwing a tomato at your grandma, but he should have been replaced a while ago. Like, he should have been upgraded 2.5 seasons ago for me. So I think inconsistencies, I agree with Tom. We need to simplify it. We're not doing what we were doing in possession last season, which is recycling the ball well, because if we have the ball, the opposition can't score. It's as simple as that. If we get rid of the ball, if we are sloppy in possession as we have been, heavy touches, poor pass selection, not taking risks in possession as well. I know risks can come back on us, but the prime example of that, the games against Rotherham and well, more so against Cardiff, where we just passed the ball around and nothing else was really happening. So I think we need to ignite that confidence a little bit more. And I think to do that, just keep it simple to start with and build that platform up. But it is weird that there does seem to be a confidence issue. Jones coming back onto his weaker left foot when he was through on goal and could have chased it down to the byline where he's very, very threatening from. Stefan electing to punch that cross into the box when he could have caught it. It all says to me that this is a team low on confidence, and it's so frustrating to watch because this team can play. They just need to believe in themselves.
Yeah, I would say on both your points as well. I think the defence of Clark, Fry, and Dijksteel is your 3 for the future to run with. I felt we felt like we were fairly balanced yesterday, and I thought we defended really. We didn't have to defend well because Rotherham didn't get past the halfway line, but most of the time we when we did dominate, we didn't, and when we were under threat, we were pretty much fine. I feel that you can build on that as well. I think the confidence stuff, yeah, I agree. It's something that you can definitely improve on, and that comes with results. But there was, and there is, like a very small murmur, I think, from a small selection of saying around Wilder, should he go? Boro are performing very well at the moment. Kind of feels full circle because last year we were at a position with Warnock where it wasn't things weren't going too well. What are your thoughts on potential Wilder leave the building conversations. Dana, do you want to go first on that?
Well, I don't subscribe to Wilder out, but I don't blame people for doing so. I think it has been a poor season so far, but also this was a problem last campaign as well. And picking up from kind of where we left off last season, it's been really, really poor. And it just seems we seem really lost at the minute. And we spoke about confidence there. Surely the manager and the management team, coaching staff instill that confidence. So maybe there's a point behind the scenes where there's a bit of a, I don't want to say disconnect because I'm so bored of saying that, but there's something not quite right there. And people will go back to the Burnley rumours and him not squashing it, and there apparently being interest from Wilder to take that job. Was that more than what we and I assumed? Because I just batted it off as if it was just nonsense from the bookies. But was there actually something more in that than I assumed? Because if so, then that could be playing a part. But yeah, I don't want Wilder out because I do believe that he is the best man to take us forward. But I think you can believe that and then also question what's happening in the present. It's entirely possible to do both. So yeah, I'm Wilder in still, but I'm massively questioning some of the things that are happening in Middlesbrough right now.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm still Wilder in, but I think even if he was to go, it's still too soon. I understand why people are now saying it. I've got a tweet here from Boro stats. It's shown there if Middlesbrough fail to pick up a point against Rotherham on Saturday, it'll be the worst start since 2013 with 9 points from 10 games. Tony Mowbray was sacked 2 weeks later. Obviously, that draw yesterday puts us a point above that. But, you know, if Warnock had us in this position last season, I feel like we'd have been massively questioning things. So I can definitely understand why people are questioning Wilder and stuff now. I think things have to improve or those calls are just going to get louder. Like I said, personally, I don't want to see it happen. I would feel like, you know, after a year, we're going back to square one already. But he does need to take a large bit of the blame, I think, for me. In the pre-match press conference against Rotherham, he blamed a goal against Cardiff on 8 individual mistakes in the lead-up. So I think as a manager, you can blame maybe 1 or 2 mistakes tops and say, yeah, it was like that one mistake from X-player that led to this goal. But 8 individual mistakes, I think, lie with how well drilled the team are. And ultimately, that does lie with the manager and the coaching staff. Like I said earlier, I think it is too soon to be looking at making a change. But I think if things don't improve and we are forced into making a change, I think this season's a bit of a one-off in that the ideal time to do it's the World Cup break anyway, because then you've got pretty much, a second pre-season while that 4-week break is on for a new manager to come in and kind of resolve any issues. So, like I say, I still think he's the right man for the job. I think he proved it when he first came in last season and the football he had us playing. It's just he really needs to kind of earn his pay now and really drill the team well over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to Coventry, so I really don't want to see us playing like we did against Reading or either of the games the last couple of weeks because. Gyökeres will end up having a field day against us and end up doing like a contract sign and celebration in front of us or something like that. But he's got the time now in this 2 weeks to resolve it and just want to see a massive improvement when we come back.
Yeah, I think bar this wobble, I think when you're looking at Wilder, like he's still third highest points per game behind Karanka and Pulis after like 30 plus games. I think it was easier to go off that than anything else. Warnock got 74, 75 games, so it's kind of a case of I think Wilder probably deserves the same. I think how does he compare to Warnock? I think Warnock had like a points per game of 1.32, so he outperformed him on that stint or that expected. I think the football is better, but there is like so many problems that are just creeping into our game, and I think it does. I think I agree with you that it comes with like the coaching, why are we creating these many mistakes? Is he getting found out? Does he need to adapt? Is there a problem with the system? I don't think there is, but I think it's like a case of we just underperform in so many areas at times. I feel like that's why we generate these mistakes quite a lot. And like, I think also again, like the coaching staff side of things with confidence, you've got a big team behind that as well. You've got like psychologists, you've got like teams that work on like the mental state, like not just mental state, but physical state of the players as well in terms of how the boys perform and just off the pitch as well. And you can go on that level of detail and you can work collectively as a group to try and improve that. But I think Wilder probably still is the man. You know, I'm not. It's weird. I feel like a lot of fans are in that same boat as well. I feel like he is the man, but the backing hasn't been as good as what we really anticipated to be. I remember at the start before in pre-season, there was marquee signings floated about. You know, there was going to be a big push this year. And then it's happened again where like fans have been all promised and it's under-delivered, and then people get frustrated and start blaming the club and all that kind of stuff. It's like a revolving, probably a vicious cycle is probably the best way to say it. But in terms of like Wilder, I think, you know, history will tell you he's had these spells at, you know, Northampton, Sheffield United, Oxford. They've all came through it and went on to win promotion. He's won promotion everywhere he's been. So could this be the pain before the gain? And you start again after the international break and really kick on. But I said around like the marquee signing and recruitment, and this is a vicious cycle. And honestly, we must speak about recruitment or getting deals over the line I think we've been doing this podcast for about 4.5 years now. We still keep coming back to it. We still keep getting asked the same questions. We keep asking, should there be a change at the top? Should we really speak about it? Because have we really just got the right bodies in there now, or have we just simply not backed him as much as we want to back him?
Oh, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think on the surface of it, we haven't, but then we have moved forward with a different strategy in the transfer window, which in a way you can praise, because we don't want to be spending 15 million or over the odds for players, because it's just not sustainable that way. The market post-COVID is forcing clubs to approach things differently. But then at the same time, we've kind of flubbed ourselves over a little bit, because we've waited for Strand Larsen, and I by no means think that we've just stuck on Strand Larsen and not looked at other players, because you can be focused on one player and then look at others as well. But we've left ourselves short up front, I think, because, well, not necessarily short up front in numbers, but short in quality, because Hoppy seems like a development signing, as Wilder has said. Force isn't really getting so much of a look in as I expected. And then midfield, big red flag in midfield. How we've managed to become worse off in that area, I do not know. I really don't. I think that is incredibly poor. And yes, we were unlucky. We didn't bring in Onyeka on deadline day because of the injury to Norgard, but surely that should have been a thing that was addressed as soon as Piero left, because Piero didn't set the world alight here, but he was an option, and now we don't have that option after Crooks. So I think the recruitment team have probably got the right approach, but the eventual results of that have not been great. And I think I rate our transfer window like 6.7 or 6.8 or something. To be honest, it gets worse by every game that I watch, because Luke made a point on the Telegram chat. Our squad building was weird, and I think it was. Our strikers just no main man, no striker that you can really hang your hat on to be a 15 goal a season striker, which I think is what we need. No ball carrier in midfield, as I alluded to. It's just really weird.
Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the right approach, and I think we've got the right players in areas. I do think we are still missing a couple of positions, mainly in midfield. But you look at it, we do have a stronger starting 11 than last season, I think. Like I said, just with a weaker midfield than we would have liked. Our new recruitment model, it has worked this summer in regards to making smart signings and trying to be profitable. And it's only been a couple of games since the transfer window ended, or a few, but it's already obvious that we need to strengthen in January, and the rebuild isn't fully finished yet. But also, we do need to start playing the players that we've signed as well. As Dana's just mentioned there, the whole Force and Hoppy being development strikers situation's just really strange to me. Force has played championship football for two other clubs, and apparently is one of them got promoted to the Premier League, but he's only good enough to be a development striker for us. And Hoppy's played in 2 of the top European leagues. And to me, it kind of has a bit of an air of like Warnock saying Uche was brought in to be third choice, but he's been given the number 9 shirt, or I asked someone above me about Van Bergen because it's nothing to do with me. Like I don't know if them not playing and McGree playing at 10 up until yesterday has been a bit of a political statement to those above to say like we need we need backing. But it seemed like there was a bit of a, not as much as last season, but a bit of kind of dual approach in the transfer window, and that the manager wanted certain players, but also the club want him to work with certain players as well. So a scene that's just coming to my mind there's from Moneyball, one of my favourite films, where the Brad Pitt, the general managers, having to actively take players away to force the coach to play people in the positions he wants. I don't know. I get the feelings like that, and Wilder wants it to look one way, but the club wants it to look another.
Yeah, both like really valid points as well. Like, also great film, Moneyball. Tom, I fully agree with you. Great film. Definitely a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes for me. But in terms of like the recruitment side, like like I've said like before, like this new recruitment structure, it's not going to be a hit overnight, is it? You're going to have strikers or players that aren't going to really fit straight away. You're gonna have people that are going to build for like the future. Like for the future, this could take about 3 years to really develop. And I know there's the expectation of getting promoted, and like obviously everyone was in agreement that playoffs is the minimum this year because of the expectation that the club set. But like the recruitment is just like as both said, it's a bit weird. It's not done yet. We're still looking for that replacement for Tav. Realistically, Pierre going on loan was strange, but it kind of made sense because he needed to play games and go back. And we're still looking for that spark. I mean, we played the 3-4-1-2 last night. Definitely thought it was an improvement in terms of like limiting chances. And we created more in terms of movement off the ball, and also created a lot of problems for Rotherham at times, but it's the finishing was left to be desired. So we're looking for another striker and try to develop from there, but we'll soon see. But I feel like we should talk a little bit about some of the matches this week, and I know we don't really want to, but and we could end this podcast here, and I feel like no one would really care, but we don't do that. We're dedicated. But let's look back to Tuesday. I know we don't really want to look back, but Boro welcome Cardiff, who have just recently sacked the manager, Steve Morrison. So mad. But while the names are unchanged side to the team that beat Sunderland, and we found ourselves 3-0 down after 45 minutes. But Watmore and Rodrigo Muniz softened the blow, and Tom dropped his phone. And everything was so much better. So, Dana, how would you assess the performance against Cardiff?
Listen, we've had a few days to digest and dissect this, and it feels like we've had about 20 years. I mean, it certainly added that much onto my life. It was, I think the word negative is thrown around in football a lot, but I do feel like we were negative in that game because our pass selection was too safe. There were no risks being taken, and one of the biggest importance of this team under Wilder is the off the ball movement. It's what makes the system tick. You can't have the Wilder ball without that movement off the ball, and we just didn't have that. There was no movement being made to draw players out of position, to disrupt the backline, to shift players out of their roles, to vacate that space with somebody else. And what happened, actually, Cardiff was set up really well. I really like their shape because there wasn't so much of a gap between their defence and their midfield, and so it forced Boro to play in front of Cardiff. And the good thing for Cardiff, anyway, the bad thing for Boro, is that we could not play through the lines. It was a really compact sort of box shape from Cardiff where they were forcing Boro to play in that middle third and the build out from the back. And what happens after this is what you do not want to happen in football. It's that dreaded U shape, because it's what happened against Blackburn. Probably the biggest example of it was that game against Blackburn at Ewood, where Boro would just pass it along the back line and not actually doing anything with it. There was no conviction to our passing, no breaking through, no just not breaking the lines really. And you see that in the game against Cardiff, it was passing usually from Fry and McNair. Clark was on the pitch for 68 minutes. If he was on for the full entirety of it, then the pass map would be a lot more defined in that U shape between the back line. Honestly, it's the worst shape that you can have in a game because you're just passing and it's so easy. And I feel like that's what Boro are right now. We're easy to play against. So you do not want to see that U shape, and that's what we've seen of late. Teams are quite compact against us. They're playing a shape whereby Boro have to play in front of them. Boro don't have the answers. Nobody's really taking any risks. No one's offering themselves for the ball. No one's getting into good positions. And then when we are getting into good positions, the pass selection is so safe, so negative, and we are kind of we're just here. We're in this position where we're not actually offering anything to the likes of Cardiff, not really threatening them, and it's really poor. And yeah, the game against them was just a real head scratcher because I remember thinking in the West Brom game, this is really early for me to think this, but I was looking at that match and thinking, I don't recognise this Middlesbrough team. In that second half, it was poor against West Brom, but I remember saying and thinking, I don't recognise this Middlesbrough team. And yes, that's understandable because we brought in new players, but still, even the basics of sort of how we've been playing this season, it feels like a million miles away from what we were last season. So it's just really strange, a real head scratcher. And we were all fuming after the game, weren't we? That Twitter Spaces we did. It was just, oh God, really bad.
Yeah, I think just on that U-shape as well, Dee, where you were mentioning there, it kind of reminds me of what Steve Morrison's doing there. So I've seen like how like Red Bull teams tend to set up where it's very counter pressing and you try to have like that little box in midfield. And what the counter press tends to do is so when you do go into those that's part of play, they can intercept you quite quickly, and then a will counter attack you with numbers, and it's fairly quickly. And if you want to like watch like a team who does that fairly often, watch Leeds United. Not very good to say on a Boro podcast, watch Leeds United, but in terms of that Red Bull methodology where Jesse March came from, that it was very, very similar of how they've adopted that. And the way Boro play, and they try to get the ball out wide, and they try to stretch teams. But if you do keep that compact shape at times, and you want to counter press in those moments and try to create traps, that's where Boro become fairly weak. And I think when we had Tav, we were able to recover quite quickly, but with the players that we have currently, I think we're quite limited. We can't recover the ball fairly quickly, and then teams will go on to break and score. But Tom,
and Tav was comfortable receiving the ball in the half turn under pressure as well, which is important for the transitioning that from defence to attack. So big problem there in midfield.
I agree. And then Tom, 3-0 down at half time. Was it a case of just Cardiff being good, or Boro simply that bad?
I honestly think it was just that we were that bad. For me, while I was watching it, it looked like someone was playing FIFA and lowered all our players' sliders down because we just looked like we were playing in slow motion. The third goal, Clark just stood there and watched Perry NG go past him. Then NG makes space around the other defender. I feel like it was Fry, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Using one of the slowest cut insides I've ever seen and still scores. McNair, I thought, was absolutely horrendous first half. Resorted to long ball like constantly and just kind of gifted possession back to Cardiff frequently. Very slow in defence as well, as we saw with the first goal. I would want to point out with the first goal as well because it came down that right-hand side. And, I don't think Jones was kind of anywhere near the situation. And I feel like that's why you have to play Dijksteel behind him. So Jones can feel like he can push up on that right-hand side and he's going to have some sort of security behind him because I just don't feel like he had that with McNair. And he was rightfully subbed at half-time, and Dijksteel in 135 minutes in the last game and a half is already showing why he's a better choice for that position. Also, second goal, ridiculously slow, closing down on the edge of the box. But in summary, all three goals were absolutely preventable. And like I say, it's just we were that slow in reacting to things. We pretty much gifted them these opportunities.
Yeah, so would you say that was the reason why they were able to break us down so easy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in that first half, it only looked like one team wanted the game, wanted to turn up and play football, and it absolutely wasn't us.
On their goals, D, I know we do love to break down a goal on this podcast. or Dowder and Harris, goals that could have been prevented.
Yeah, the third one as well from NG, which is the worst one, but I don't even want to break that one down because I think you can just say one word for that, and that was absolutely crap.
That's two
well,
words.
That's 2 words. Yeah. But
Yes.
the first one, yes, the first one, I mean, feeding into the narrative about not keeping a hold of the ball or taking care of possession anywhere near enough. Paddy McNair powers a ball into Crooks, probably a little bit too overhitched, shall we say, into him. Crooks manages to kind of get it under his spell a little bit, but then classic Crooks touch, like a zoo animal, pick any. It's just an awful touch. Joe Rawls is able to pick up possession, and then we're immediately on the back foot. The space in between, the space in behind in the midfield area is ridiculous. And obviously, we do recover this from runners getting back, but we just don't really have the pace to be able to get to a safe position. So that move starts in midfield, which is a big problem of ours. We can't keep hold of the ball anywhere near good enough as we did last season. And then if we move it on, Callum Robertson plays a really, really good ball in behind, and McNair's just caught napping. And it really sums up how poor he was that night, because he's just really passive. And I think that's probably one of the biggest descriptions that I could give for that game. We were very passive, and it's a fantastic ball, don't get me wrong. And I remember at the time thinking, bloody hell, that's fantastic passing behind, perfectly weighted for Callum O'Dowda to run onto. But O'Dowda's already on his bike, and Paddy McNair is just so slow and doesn't realise this kind of spatial awareness around him and the player around him to be able to follow that run. And then the Harris goal, the second one, it's where Howson has possession of the ball, and the pass to Alex Moore is on, and Alex Moore is gesturing to receive the pass, but he's under pressure by Rinomota, and Howson's forced back towards his own goal. And this is what really annoys me about this goal, is that Alex Moore does not move from that frame. He does not move. He doesn't sort of come infield to receive the ball from Howson or to try to give him an option. Then you've got Jones and McNair, who have positioned themselves behind the Cardiff players, so they are in no way a viable option for a pass. And yes, Howson keeps hold of the ball for far too long, but he's not helped by his teammates, who don't really offer themselves for the ball after Alex Moore initially does. He just doesn't follow that up by, coming closer to Howson to be able to give him a passing lane there. So Cardiff were very good in their press, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just really poor from Boro. The kind of, again, just not really showing themselves for the ball, being really passive, and being quite negative. And yeah, the third goal is just exactly what we should be doing, and what we have been doing, the off the ball movement, in behind, give and go, get in behind. And I mean, bloody hell, the centre half scores that goal. That's embarrassing.
Can I just add on to that second goal as well? I advocated for signing Rinomota quite a few times, and that was exactly the reason why. Like, we had a prime opportunity on a free transfer this year, and he went to Cardiff.
Good signing for them as well.
They should listen to you more often, Tom. They should.
We should.
I mean, it was a good, really good suggestion as well. I felt like it would have fit the mould really, really well, and the way that we press is so influential in trying to get results for us, and it just didn't materialize, and now we don't have someone to do that. But on the frames that you showed, then I think it was just a case of that counter pressing, the narrowness of trying to be smart about the ball, showing that Red Bull method philosophy really, and how they're operating. And that was really, really smart from Cardiff to play the way they did. If you occupy that central space and make things really difficult for Boro, that is something that teams can really, if you've got quality on the break, then that is a way to play against this Boro side at the moment, especially when they're low on confidence. But in the second half, Tom, Cardiff had an XG of 0.00, and we did make 2 changes with McNair and Watmore. McNair and Mowat coming off, and then Watmore and Dykesfield coming on. Sorry, that was a massive mouthful to say. But
yes,
it just shows that they were very happy to sit in. And do you think it was Boro had far too much to do, 3-0 down at home, 45 minutes to play? Yes, they didn't even have a shot. Yes, they had an XG of not. And it was just too much to do for Boro in that front.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that at half time. I just thought it was very similar to the QPR game earlier this season. I didn't even think we'd get one back, but as soon as we got one and then got the second, I was like, yep, that's it. We're not getting a third. Cardiff didn't have to do anything in terms of attack in the second half, and you can't blame them. If we were 3-0 up what is supposed to be a strong team away from home, you'd absolutely expect us to sit in and see it out second half. So, fair play. That's all they had to do. And, they did the jobs well second half. Ultimately, we just left ourselves with far too much to do from, not waking up until the 45th minute.
Yeah, and with that as well, like even although we scored 2 then, and the comeback was probably a bit too much. Do you think that the goals were a bit overshadowed by just that first half in general? Like, even if we did salvage a point, do you think it would have been still fairly frustrating?
Yeah, because when you're crap and as bad as we were in the first half, it is not a positive to be better in the second half. It just isn't, because you can't get any worse than we were in the first half. So, yes, we were better in the second half, but I don't take positives from that really, because we had to be. We simply had to be. If we weren't, then it would have been severely bad, even worse than it was in the first half. And so, yeah, we just had to be better in the second half, to be honest. I don't really take too many positives from it.
Okay, well, I know there's not many positives, but I'm going to try and find one or two. Is there anyone that can come out with a little bit of credit from that game in particular, Tom?
Yeah, I've got two. I've got Dijksteel and Muniz. I don't think I've seen a game so far where Muniz doesn't look like he's given 100% up front yet. And it's really good to see, considering what we've had up front the last couple of years. There wasn't a lot for him to do. There was a lot for him to do against Cardiff by himself. The long balls really didn't suit him, but I never saw him kind of give up. He was always using his 10-foot vertical leap to go for headers and trying to hold the ball up and bring other people into play. So it didn't suit him that game, but like I say, he never gave up, and fair play. You could tell he was putting a lot of effort in. And also Dijksteel, as I mentioned earlier, brought such a difference just from being able to play the ball on the floor and being able to be progressive at right centre back, which was the opposite of what McNair was doing for that entire first half.
Dan, is you're not a fan of McNair on this podcast, are you, Tom?
No. Sold him to Brentford for 7 million on Footy Manager yesterday, and I feel like I scammed him.
7 mil. Wow. Wow. That's a great bit of business, Tom. I'm not going to lie. Good business.
It's my transfer model.
Yeah, get you in, Tom. Head of recruitment, head of deals as well. You may as well at this point. Dana, is there anyone else? I mean, Dijksteel, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it has to be Dijksteel. I mean, he made a run within, I think, about 5 minutes of him coming on, and he was my man of the match based on that, because he tried to break through, and there was intent there. There was an action with intent, and that dribble got us somewhere. I think it might have even created an opportunity. So yeah, within 5 minutes of him coming on, it was man of the match for me. He's absolutely nailed. He's somebody that should start in right centre back for the foreseeable future. Wilder was right to drop McNair. He was poor he's been poor for a while. And Dijksteel is a shoe in there for me for the foreseeable. I agree with what Tom said about Muniz. He never hides, does he? And even when things aren't necessarily going for him, he battles really hard. And bar that annoyance, the shot against Watford, I really like Muniz so far.
Yeah, I do as well. I think he's brilliant, and it's just giving him the opportunities to score now, and I think he will put them away when he gets a chance, or he'll try and do something incredible, or try and score a volley from 60, 70, 80 yards away. But we'll but it's I think he's been a really, really good signing, and I agree with Dijksteel. Tremendous footballer, absolutely love him, and think he's been probably one of Boro's best players of the season so far. And then just on McNair, played a lot of games over like the last 3 years. I think it averages out to 53 games a year. which probably one a week, but obviously, the intensity can come and go on that one. So maybe he's playing a bit too much and we just need to time out and just, a little bit of burnout and just get him out the team for a few weeks and see how he comes back from there. And that's managing that accordingly. Obviously, this league is very, very demanding, so there could be fatigue in that, but you don't want to make too many excuses on those things. But let's look at Rotherham then. I don't think we'll spend too much time on this because I don't think anything happened. But the things that did, Wilder made 3 changes. Stephen Watmore and Dykeseal came in for Roberts, Mowat and McNair. And guys, what were your thoughts on the game? Because, like I said, nothing really happened, did it, Tom?
No, to be honest, I was quite glad for it because I was really ready for bed by the time it had finished for a nighttime kickoff. Just extremely boring. I thought we were lucky that Rotherham never looked like scoring, but I was fearful every time they got a set piece because Dana had already put the fear of God into me pre-match with us about Rotherham being second in the set piece XG table. So every time they got a corner or a free kick, I was like, "Oh God, here we go."
Yeah, more scores scored from set pieces this season, along with QPR on 5.
But yeah, I mean, we had a few half chances. We looked like the most likely of the two teams to score, but it just wasn't good enough. To me, it felt like I'd gone back in time and I was watching, a game where Warnock was in charge because we just looked clueless in attack, just so slow and lacking confidence. There was a bit of play which I thought summed up the entire game, which was when Jones got goal side of his man. If he'd have kept going, he either had a clear pass or he was getting fouled for a penalty. And he cut back and just everyone just groaned in frustration. And whether or not that was just because he was waiting for more people to get in the box or he just fancied going back and trying to beat the man again, I don't know. But we're back to doing similar as I mentioned we did against Reading, where we're just trying to overcomplicate everything, trying to get the perfect pass into attacking area rather than taking a risk, as Dana mentioned earlier, which is necessary to create an attacking opportunity sometimes. And it just looks like we get up the pitch and we just try and play ultra safe and try not to lose the ball, which you can't do when you're trying to attack.
Okay. And Dana, I'm going to come to you as well. I feel like I need both your opinions on this one.
Yeah, I was thoroughly bored. I said after the game to use that I've never wanted to escape from the Riverside and the surrounding areas as quick as I did yesterday. And yet I watched 2 really poor games yesterday, so the words soul sapping come to mind. But yeah, it was just poor. I think probably the most entertaining part of that game was when Rory the Lion took a penalty at half time and his shoe fell off again.
He looked so dejected walking off after that as well, by the way.
He scored though, didn't he?
I don't know. I didn't think he did. He had his head down when he was walking off. Kids were trying to shake hands with him. He didn't want any of it.
I was screaming.
Poor Rory the Lion. I mean, he just comes to the game, just wants to take a penalty, and his shoe falls off. We've all been there. We've all been there.
Front next game, like.
Well, with the slight tactical tweak as well, Tom. We played a 3-4-1-2 yesterday. We mentioned on the podcast a few weeks ago that could be a system where Middlesbrough might flourish in. It might limit the space and also create more chances for us and connect the midfield to the attack. I can't remember which podcast it was. It might be a couple of, I think it was 2 podcasts ago. I think we spoke about it. But McGree was in the 10. How do you think Boro fared in that system?
A little bit better. I thought McGree was certainly more involved than he has been recently. And I saw him coming deep to receive the ball quite often. And it did help that we were actually playing the ball into his feet as well, which we weren't doing against Cardiff. But it did seem like in that position he did have attacking options ahead of him. I wouldn't mind seeing it again moving forward, and especially in the place of Mowat, who I thought was going to be a very good signing for us, and I think has been poor the last few games as well. But yeah, it seemed a little bit better in that formation, so we've at least got something to work on, I think.
And Wilder said it was a bit of an arm wrestle as well, Tom, but did you see it as an arm wrestle, or did you just see it as a podcast like sleep? Do you know all the sleep casts? Was it an arm wrestle or a sleep cast?
No, I do agree that it was a bit of an arm wrestle, but it should have honestly never have been that, and the standards need to be higher. I think 1 point from a week where you have 2 home games against Cardiff and Rotherham is nowhere near good enough if you're trying to be competing at the top of the table. It's all well and good saying it was a tough game after the fact, but it's the type of game you have to be winning. And I don't think you should be going into that not even looking that threatening, getting a 0-0 draw and be like, oh, it was a bit of an arm wrestle. Like, no, you needed 6 points out of this week.
And we didn't get. We just got the one and ended up being third bottom in the championship table. But Rotherham came with a game plan. It was to sit in that low block. We couldn't really break them down. I think if you want to compare it to the Cardiff game, I think Cardiff were a bit more compact in those areas, and Boro were able to break the line to the number 10. But it was just outline our weaknesses really that game on Saturday night.
It did, yeah, because I don't think we moved the ball quick enough anymore. And then when we did get the chances, they fell to the players that you probably don't want them to fall to. And it just kind of sums up our our night. If they were to have fallen to Muniz, I'd be a lot more confident. You know, the lot more chance where Richard Wood kind of fumbles it, doesn't he? And it lands to him on the volley, kind of cushions it over the bar. Should be testing the keeper. Jones, when Watmore did all the great work, cut it back, he should be testing the goalkeeper. How that stayed out in the second half, I do not know. I think Johansson got a touch on it, didn't he? And it hit the post and went over the line. That pretty much sums up Boro's look at the moment. But yeah, I think when we do come up against a low block, we need to move the ball quicker, take more risks, and you will see that you'll pull players in sort of out of that low block, and then you can pick up those positions. It's easier said than done, of course, but I just think our pass selection's really poor at the moment, and we're not taking risks. The off the ball movement ain't great. And yesterday, when Mark Bowler came on, he made a run, and I said, "Well done, Bowler." You know, I'm praising the players for moving now, which sums up.
I was going to say he's just been sent off in the 23s, so
not well done, Bowler.
What, 24 hours for Mark Bowler, getting
yeah.
compliments for running and then getting sent off straight after.
But that's what we want to see. Not him get sent off, but we want to see those runs. We want to see the dribbling and you know, taking the game to the likes of Rotherham and Cardiff and whoever else we come up against. It doesn't matter about quality. You know, we just want to see those risks being taken and the off the ball movement, the triangles, the platform to be able to link the Jones Dijksteel and Crooks together. We're not really seeing that anymore, really.
Yeah, we aren't, and I think when you go onto that low block as well, there's obviously 2-3 ways you can go around it to try and beat that. It is the tempo and trying to stretch teams and play. You can either play through them, or alternatively, it's that cross diag. But you've got to be very, very quick in how you're playing. That you were saying, Dennis, pulling players out of position. When you play at such a slow tempo and there's no off the ball movement, there's probably 2 things that come to mind. Is that 1, your team is short of confidence, or 2, you aren't capable, or you're not capable of passing that cross diag, and you're not willing to do it or take the risk. I feel like it was probably a mixture of both yesterday, and hopefully we can try and improve that. But that low block, it's always going to come at the Riverside. Teams will sit in that low block. It's just a case of when it was under Karanka, we had like a Ramirez who would just be a bit of magic and could break a team down. But as soon as that first goal happens, that low block becomes mid block, or becomes like there's more space. And I think Boro's got to be a bit more fluid and try to break teams down fairly quick, more quicker in that first half, or be a bit more aggressive to try and get that first goal. And I know, Denny, you mentioned about Watmore putting 2 chances away, and he probably should have. And it's just a bit frustrating, isn't it? I think that he could have been so much better, and he really should have put them away.
Yeah, it's classic Watmore, really. And God, if only he could finish, honestly, because he does all the good work, and he did all the good work yesterday. You know, the running, actually trying to get through. You know, he never shies away. Watmore, does he? So much like Muniz, he still works hard, but he just can't finish. And that's probably why I've said a few times to move him on, because yes, he's, you know, fantastic in the build up, but he just can't finish, and that's half of Boro's problem, and has been for for quite a few seasons now, and it feels like we're much better with actually attacking, I would say, than previous seasons where it has felt like we've just been pulling teeth. But then when you have Watmore, unfortunately, just can't finish up front, then the chances are always going to fall to him rather than the player that probably can actually finish it.
Well, let's move on to questions then, because I don't think there's anything more we can really say about the game on Saturday night. But this is an opportunity for you guys to send us questions via Twitter or email at theborobreakdown@hotmail.com, or you can join our Telegram chat with over 290 Boro fans in there talking anything but Boro. But the first question from Gareth, and he says, "Does Jones need a break out of the team? He's been very poor. His crossing is worse than Adama's. He won't take him on anymore either. Bad case of second season syndrome." Dana, do you want to take this one?
I don't know, because he still can create, and I don't want to just sort of discard Jones. And I mean, to be fair, I don't think people are saying that, but I don't know whether it's the right time to drop him, to be honest. And I do feel like there's this perception of Smith that he's a really defensive option. He's absolutely not. From what Ben said about him, Ben from the YYY Files of Stoke podcast, he's very creative, really high in terms of his chance creation last season. And he seems like an attacking option. He's very much a wing back, so I don't think people should get it twisted that Smith, maybe because he's a more experienced head, that he's sort of a Martin Craney or a Fraser Richardson or somebody like that. He's very much an attacking wing back. So, Tom said it last week, it's prime time to play him, but I just don't. I think we should stick with Jones, because don't forget, he got an assist. What was it? Against Cardiff. So he's still, it's not as if his output has waned. I think once his output wanes and he goes a certain amount of games without registering any assists or goal contributions, then potentially, then that's the time to drop him. I just think it's maybe a little bit too premature right now.
Okay. Tom, is there anything to add to that?
Like I said the other day, I just think Smith he has been brought in to be the competition to Jones, and I don't think any player should kind of automatically be part of the team. I do think there is a good opportunity to play Smith now, but I don't think the problems that Jones is having is specific to him. I think it's quite a lot of the team are going through the same sort of problems. So I do think, if we can get Smith in and he's replicating the same kind of chance creation he was having for Stoke last season, it might improve. But Jones could benefit from a spell out and then coming back in. It could be that we might need some rotation there. But like I say, the problems aren't specific to him. So if we can coach it, if he can be part of the whole kind of coaching within the next couple of weeks and coming back stronger, then absolutely no problem with that. But it just seems like we've got Smith there as an option, and we have never used him so far, which I find is a bit strange. Kind of even as a sub appearance, we rarely see him.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you both on that one. I'd like to see a bit more of Smith, and whether it's a replace for Jones, then so be it. To be honest, I feel like Jones could maybe do with a little bit of time out. Maybe this break might do him good. But the next question is from James, and says, "Is this starting to feel a little bit terminal? Pre-season hopes are now gone, surely. But what's a good season from here?" Dana, what is a good season from here?
Well, I don't want to say that, we're not. I think it would be easy for me to sit here and make myself feel better and say that playoffs are gone, but they're not. I think there's 108 points still to play for. That's an awful lot of points. That's going to change. The table is going to change a lot from now until the end of the season. So I don't think anything's terminal. I don't feel like we should sit here and say that playoffs is done. Yes, we do look a million miles away from being a playoff contender the way that we're playing at the moment, but that will change. I'm certain it will change. But I still think my thoughts of where Boro will finish, was it 5th? I still think that's doable. I still think that will happen because, as I said, lots of points still to play for. I certainly don't think we should press the panic button yet. And and say that we're doomed. It's a struggle at the moment, isn't it? We're playing poorly. There's a lot of despondency, but I'm just hoping and praying that it will change. I don't have any particular strong opinions on Boro's sort of future going forward, to be honest. So I don't think anything is impossible now, but things need to change, but I think they will.
Okay, then the final question of the day, it's from Will, and he says, why do people not want Scott Parker in? But my next question is for you both, since you're massive advocates of Scott Parker. So, Tom, why do people not want Scott Parker in?
I just feel like those people have no appreciation of a good cardigan, to be honest. I mean, that must be it, because it can't be anything, football related, because we all know he's a shite manager. So I would want him as a manager. It's got to be cardigan related.
He's just not a great manager, to be honest. He had the luxuries of the Fulham team, the very, very good Fulham team, and then a Bournemouth team that spent forget about spending so much money. He brought a lot of top quality players in. That quality got them over the line in the end. And if it didn't, then that would have been really, really bad for him. I remember watching Back of the Net podcast, and this might be really sad, but I was watching a really long video that they did. It was like over an hour long, where it was a proper inquest. It was the good old results versus entertainment question and debate. And they were a bit at a loss, really, because they knew that they were getting the results, but they knew that the football was diabolical. And I don't think Scott Parker would cut it here, to be honest. I don't think the fans would take to him. I don't think the fans would take to his football. Fulham fans really don't like him, and this is an ex-player of theirs. Like, they really don't like him. They have that chant of F off Scott Parker, we've got Marco Silva. So, honestly, if anybody is even thinking for Scott Parker to come to Middlesbrough, look at what Fulham fans say about him. Look at what Bournemouth fans say about him. He's just not very good. Simple as that.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go to a game again if Scott Parker became manager of Middlesbrough Football Club. To be honest, I would leave and not come back until he left. I mean, it'd be very difficult doing this podcast, but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I couldn't say either. Yeah, he had 2 promotions, but I think I could have got promoted with those 2 sides. To be honest, they were fantastic, and that January window from Bournemouth and just gone was incredible. The amount of top quality players that they brought in, and still just got over the line, was very difficult to kind of say, well, you're a good manager, and then Premier League kind of proves that he just hasn't been good enough any time since he's been there. So, but to end on a positive note, guys, we actually are only 5 points off the playoffs with 36 games to play. So don't beat yourself down about it, guys. Don't write the season off. There's always still time to be optimistic. We've still got January. We've still got more breaks to come. We've still got plenty of football we play. But right now, we're 22nd in the Championship, and this wasn't part of the script. This has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was all your Boro Match Day chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.